Hey there, my little biz besties. Welcome back to In Good Company, where real entrepreneurs share real growth stories. Thanks for liking and subscribing to my channel. Let's get into it.
I am not a financial planner.
I didn't win the stock market competition.
I know TikTok, social media always plays a game.
It's just a matter of like feeling like I'm so far behind or everybody must know more than I do.
I have seen great transformations in small amounts of time and then transformations that take longer times.
Usually there's a difference and maybe it's opposites attract, I don't know, but sometimes there'll be somebody who's like really cool with everything and somebody else who's like, nope.
Okay, we are good. Both sides look good. Yes. We used to use Zoom. I will say we used to use Zoom for recording, and then we use G Suite for our team stuff. So we were like, oh, let's just use Google Meet. Like we pay for G Suite. Why not? It was awful.
Yeah.
Awful. So that's when Riverside came about. And like I mentioned, not a huge tech guy. So if it's a press one button and then record, I can do it. So I do miss the Zoom days, though. It was easy.
Yeah.
So,
Google Meet, those, I don't know. They're always a little tough, but
I
yeah.
don't know why. What happens? I don't understand it. Zoom feels like iPhone, and then when we get on a Google Meet, it feels like Android. And I'm like, what's happening here? There should be enough resources for both to be beautiful. So when do you have guests on your podcast?
I do. Most of the time I do. I've started to do a few more solo episodes just to kind of slow down the pace. I was doing weekly and that was a lot with the business. And so kind of going down to like one solo a month and then a guest, depending on like what we're talking about that month. But yeah, kind of mixing it up a little bit more.
Which one do you like more?
I like guests. I like talking with people. I feel like it's easy. But sometimes I was starting to get pitched a lot of different guests that sometimes were kind of a stretch of a fit. And at one point I was like, I feel like this is kind of getting away from like, what is this? What am I doing this for? What is the point? I don't know if you've ever had those moments.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Why am I doing
this? So when you start growing, and you are doing the solo episodes, you speak on what you know. So the name of your podcast, Demystifying Money, which again, Misty, demystifying is so honestly genius. So when you're doing these solo episodes and you're speaking on things you know, there's probably a sense of comfort. Like, I know what I'm talking about. Like this, I could talk about this. This is fine. There's an awkward part of it because you're alone. But when you bring guests on, and sometimes you have people helping you get these guests on, right? The scheduling and all that, there's a disconnect. And so you get on the line with the person and they're like, I want to talk about spiritual healing in the desert. And you're like, love this for you. I know nothing.
Right.
I am out of my depth here. So has that happened? Well, you get kind of like,
sometimes, I mean, luckily everything can be related back to money. Almost everything can kind of tie into like, okay, well, tell me about these spiritual retreats in the desert. Like, is there like, there's a business behind it, I'm sure. And like, how do you plan for that if you're going to leave work for a month or something? I don't know. So, but it's a little bit more
expensive.
work. Yeah, it does sound expensive, but yeah, it's usually like a little bit. But sometimes I agree that I feel like that's like that with anything new. But you're right, as it grows and there's more like interest, it's changed a little bit from like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to this person because I know that they can talk about accounting or they can talk about like legal work and stuff like that we know makes sense. But
yeah, and it aligns a little more. When I was kind of reading what you got going on, the theme was money, and I'm like, okay, great. Yes, I could talk about money all day long. However, I am not a financial planner, and I actually get asked I'm guessing, very similar questions that you get asked on a daily basis, because people that aren't in our space have a hard time separating the line. Like, what do you mean as my accountant, you can't talk to me about retirement funds? It's money. What do you mean you aren't the expert on that? And that's where we work with financial planners a lot, because as soon as someone says retirement funds, strategy, a lot of strategy questions, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, I remember you mentioning something last year. It didn't feel important until right now.
Right. Yes.
And that's where we hook them up with a financial planner. Is that kind of what you're seeing, or what are some of the common things right now? The hot
Yes,
things?
a lot of times, especially when we get close to tax season or tax time, you know, and I think that's where it's really nice to work closely with other professionals, because for clients, it doesn't make sense. Like, what do you mean you can't tell me, you know, like, can I deduct this? I'm like, well, to work with your, you know, your account on that. I tend to be more conservative on the tax side because of the line of work I'm in, but maybe, like, you know, and I will get a lot of questions in that space, sometimes a lot of legal questions, where I'm like, I know enough, but I'm not a lawyer. And so I understand, like, sometimes people do want like a one-stop shop type of thing, but also like that's a lot of different places to be an expert in.
Right. So, I want to know what these one-stop shops. I mean, are you employing a tax attorney, a financial planner, and a CPA? Because those are totally different realms. So they're going to you for strategy, but when you are talking to people about strategy, maybe something you talked about to someone yesterday, are there hot topic commonalities? Because I've been getting, I know TikTok, social media always plays a game. And so I can tell, oh, we watched like a 30-second video, and now we want to know everything about it. For us, it's been, they want to lower their tax liability. And so they have it in their mind, well, I have 5 kids, so let's like put them on payroll immediately. I get that a lot.
Yeah, and I have people like, you know, well, I want to write off my car because I have my own business now, but I'm like, but you work from home and you don't see clients. And so they're like, but I saw this, that I can do it, and why not? And then I'm like, no, that's not necessarily how it works, but I get it for videos, for likes and clicks and views. Yes, like those big write off your G-Wagon type of TikTok are going to do well. So I'm like, oh, it's got to like make sense.
Yeah, we have to be able to explain it. That's what.
And I mean, and I have talked to some of my clients, you know, and some of them that are self-employed, and some have businesses that are, you know, creative businesses. I have one who's a social media manager, and I'm like, well, do you use your kids in like your social media? And she's like, yeah, all the time. There's pictures, and I'm like, well, you could hire that kid, you know, like maybe that is, you know, something that you would have to go out and pay for. And like sometimes it does make sense, or if your kids get a little older and they can start to do some work. And I mean, my kids are, you know, like 13 and 11, where like my 13-year-old could absolutely do some light editing on certain things as far as, you know, or ideas, topics, you know, it's just, there's different things. But I feel like a lot of times people think like, oh, well, all of these things that are out there that I hear about should be available to me. And they might not be. And so that's where you want people to like not run into trouble. But I love like, at least, you know, knowing that they have somebody to ask or talk to.
Right.
Because it is kind of wild out there.
Yeah. And there's a lot of newer things coming into play with the, you know, OBBB. And so people they're being sold something, you know, this is going to change your life. And so they want life-changing results. And I get that. My children are 8 and 14. So the 8-year-old is shredding. That's like the limit. And even then, like he's the worst employee. He needs breaks like every 5 minutes, and I'm like, what am I paying you for? You know, like you're the worst employee. But the older one can do things. He can do editing. He can, you know, file. But it has, like you said, it has to make sense. So it is a wild world out there. There's a lot of opportunities, but I personally think having separate representation, that's what we preach over here at the firm. You have your accountant, you have your financial planner, connect them and let them strategize. Is that kind of how you guys?
Yeah, I agree. I love when I can coordinate, and I have done that with some clients with their CPAs or with their attorneys. And so like a CPA can create a beautiful an estate planning attorney can create a trust and all that, but like if I don't retitle the accounts to fund it properly, that work's not done. They're not happy. Like the client thinks everything is done, and so feeling like that coordination can be much easier because we might maybe speak a little bit different language as far as what we're saying.
Yeah.
And that just kind of cuts out confusion. And like, really all of us want like, you know, the ultimate end goal to like serve our clients and make sure that things are done well. And then with some accountants, you know, sometimes we could talk to each other. Okay, did we think of this? Did we think of that? And like, you know, sometimes it could be stressful for the client to be a part of that. It could be, you know, intimidating. And it's like, no, we're just all trying to get this stuff done. But I do like, I prefer coordinating rather than having it be on the back end. Well, you know, my CPA said I should have done this. And like, we've never talked.
Right. Yeah. And you bring up stress, which is perfect because this time of year, you know, I'm sure people ask you this, or maybe not, because you're planning all year round. People always come to us and say, "Are you okay? I know it's tax season. Like, are you doing okay mentally?" And what's interesting is we're doing the same thing that we do every month. Yeah. The difference is the stress felt by the clients. So the clients, their stress changes this time of year because they are more aware of deadlines versus we're doing this all year round. Like, we actually file your taxes every single month. Like, not a lot has changed. You're just more stressed. Why do you think money causes so much stress, and how can people try to fix that?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that as far as like tax, like maybe you're not feeling any super additional stress. Maybe the workload's busier. I know I have family members that work part-time in like CPA offices, and like this is their season where they go full-time, you know, and I think that the work is pretty much the same. But I feel like you're right. Deadlines. What did I forget? What don't I know? Should I have done the things that they mentioned to me in that meeting last year that maybe I didn't do? And that feels like, you know, just another opportunity to be criticized, judged, shamed. And like, I hope that that's not, you know, that's why with the planning work, we kind of keep it going like year round. We don't go too far without checking in, because then they come up to that annual meeting sometimes, which that's the bare minimum really in investment advisory space that you need to do. And like, if that's all you're doing, that's the only touch point. A lot of people, when I started working with them, oh yeah, my financial advisor used to meet with me once a year and they would ask for all this stuff right before the meeting. And I felt like I hated going to that meeting, or I was nervous about that meeting. It caused stress, which I feel like is why people disengage, maybe stop going. And like, because they feel like it's just adding more work instead of taking more off their plate. And kind of, you know, I feel like that could be where we've started to send out like monthly emails and like ideas, like just even if they're not talking to me, like I feel like they're still reading it or hearing it or know that like we're there to reach out. So that definitely is something. And I think traditional financial space, you know, is kind of intentionally intimidating, like the jargon and the suit and tie and the, you know, like the big office with, you know, like it's just kind of been intended to be like, I'm the expert. You don't know what you're doing. You let me do it, and don't bother me until next year.
Don't ask questions.
Right. Don't ask questions. You won't get it.
And those letters in bold. I'm like, calm down, Daddy IRS. Like, you're putting letters in red. Jesus Christ speaks in red. Yeah. Like, why are you putting red?
Why are you doing this? Like,
so scary.
It's so scary. And like, that's like, I feel like that's always been like intentional. And I think that's why so many people hate thinking about, you know, their tax planning or their financial planning, because they just assume like, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to do it wrong. Meanwhile, they've got degrees in whatever science or things that I couldn't even imagine trying to understand. And they're like, oh yeah, I can't really understand numbers. And I'm like, what? You're like you're a surgeon. Stop it.
And maybe it's like, because you talk about this in your many things that you're doing, is mindset. And if they are associating meeting with their financial planner, meeting with their CPA with feelings of dread, with feelings of behind, not being successful enough, not doing the right thing, and just not understanding the language, their mindset is totally whack. They're not knowing how to regulate those emotions. So working in this space, obviously you weren't birthed and then told you're a financial planner for life.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
No,
okay.
definitely not. Yeah, no, I wasn't born with any financial advantages.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that would be an
know,
advantage to know at birth, like, this is what I'm
yeah,
going to do.
yeah,
Save for life. Yes.
yeah. No,
So
it's
you had to work on
definitely
your mindset in a
sure.
way. There was a journey. Tell me about that journey. What
Yeah,
that looked
so
like.
I feel like my financial journey, it was a little bit different than most people, where when I was very young, my father had his own business and he was really successessful. He worked from home, which was very odd, I think, in the early 80s to like always see my dad work. Like I saw him at home, I saw his office, I'd play and I'd be in there all the time. And my mom didn't have to work when I was very young. My dad was an engineer. He was inspecting he was doing a lot of different home inspections, things like that. He was very busy.
Okay.
And then in the early 90s, his business kind of dried up. Like there was a small recession, and we ended up, all of the money, the house, all of these things kind of went away. And we ended up moving into an apartment. Like our life changed dramatically.
Sure.
And so sometimes when people are born with nothing ever, they never expect more. They never like it's different than having it and having it taken away. Like there's a certain, I think, level of hunger that maybe comes when you're like, no, wait,
Right.
this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Got to go
That
back.
felt
I got to
right.
go back to that.
I got to
Yeah.
get back there. And I think that it's different than people who've had nothing and then just work their way up to success, which is just maybe a more traditional type of path where
Yeah.
it was really a little bit different. I did see the good things about self-employment. I always had my father around. I didn't ever he didn't miss any of my childhood, which was great. But then I also saw the side of self-employment, which is really tough. And there's no HR department to talk to. There's no retirement plan unless you set one up. There's no unemployment at that time if your clients dry. Like there's not a lot of safety nets for self-employed people in this country. And it was really hard on everybody in the family. And so I guess when I got interested in money, the biggest thing was I did like a stock market competition in 6th grade. I was a new kid in 6th grade, so like I didn't have a lot of
You were
friends
going all in the cool cards.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like win this competition.
Yeah.
Right. And so I ended up like picking Coca-Cola because I thought that Fruitopia was going to be a huge success. And I didn't win the stock market competition, but I did feel like, wow, okay, so you could take your money, a little bit of it, invest in businesses and have them make money. So I remember like telling my parents that I figured out like how we could fix things.
Genius.
Which every parent wants to hear from their 12-year-old kid.
And like, finally, this is why she was birthed. To
like,
change her
you
life.
figured it out, huh? Like you actually need money to go do this stuff. And I was like, okay. And I literally like made, I started working pretty young. Like I always was interested in like making money, having my own money. For me, that felt like comfort. That felt it's stressful when you don't have money. When you're arguing about money or you're fighting about it, like it's just, I felt like if we had what we had, like there wouldn't be any problems. Now that's sort of short-sighted. However, like that was what the fights were about. A lot. Often. Yeah. It wasn't really anything else. Everyone was, other than that, like really, nobody had any big issues or, I don't know. It's always felt like money. And so, I really just started to like kind of dig into like, how do you make money? What jobs pay well? Reading books that said rich in the title or wealth or whatever, like reading all of that stuff at the library because the library is free. And like, I kind of just always had was kind of just always fascinated by it. But it's interesting because my sister, raised in the same household, same circumstances, she's went into education. She never really had that same thought or feelings about money at all. So like
she doesn't care about the money.
Not really. Like I explained to her what her 403B is and she's like, oh, whatever. Like I don't care. So it's strange, but that's kind of what, I think in like a basic way, like I'm like just kind of somebody you wish you kind of came across when you were a kid or like years ago. Right. And like maybe I could be that for another family who really wants to stay in business or like has some really great ideas and wants to be self-employed or wants to, maybe one person works and one doesn't. Like how can we make this work better and feel more comfortable? Because it's not necessarily easy. It's definitely not easy for, small businesses these days with health insurance and tariffs and all these things that are coming at them that they're facing and feeling more maybe than somebody who works in corporate and just gets their, W-2s. So kind of always just leaned towards helping those clients and having a podcast where I talk to those entrepreneurs about how they make money. And I think there's people who are really curious about how people make money, or how do they afford that? How do they live like this? Because it feels like, you know, you see people, influencers online or anything, and you're like, how do they do this? What do they make? And so it's like you interview those influencers and they're like, yeah, I get paid in like clothes, or I get paid in wine, I get paid in this, but like it's really hard to pay the bills and I have to figure all this other stuff out. Where other people are just like, oh, it must be nice. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to it.
You don't know. Yeah. You don't know what they're behind the scenes. And it sounds like you kind of associated this hunger for learning about money in hopes to not have the big fight in the home always be about money. And the more knowledge you have, the more you can equip yourself with making good decisions about that. So that sounds like that kind of bleeds over into what you're doing with your clients. Like, let me educate you, let me teach you, so you have the tools to kind of break down the social media only shows you someone's best 30 seconds of life.
Just the best part of their day. It's just the highlight reel.
Not real life. Yeah. And you're helping them obtain the reality of a comfortable life.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and I get this question a lot, Ashley, is like, well, do I have enough? Is X dollars enough? Do I need this? And it's like, people don't realize how much of financial planning means, like, how much does it cost to be you? Like, $1 million might be perfect. My mom could ride that out to the sunset, like, not even come close to spending that much money ever. But like some of my clients, that might last a solid 6 years, 7 years, depending on how they live and what they do. And so I feel like some people feel like there's this magic number or threshold, and it's just not necessarily true. How's your health? How are all these other things going to factor into what is going to make sense for you? So it's very, very personal. And there is just this compulsion to compare yourselves to what we see online, what maybe your friends are able to do, versus what maybe this was like your wildest dream 20 years ago, but now that you're here, it doesn't feel so impossible anymore. Like, can you imagine having like, this job, or, sending your kid to this school, or this home? And it's like, well, yeah, but I've had it. And now like my friends have yachts, or they go to Tahoe for 2 weeks, and it's like,
right.
Okay. So
because it's real, it feels real to them now.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like this unobtainable journey.
Yeah.
And so I love that I love that you said, how much does it cost to be you? Yeah. Because there's no template that fits. It's not cookie cutter. No. And there's a mind. I love talking about the mindset, because people think that's woo-woo stuff. Yeah. And like, it's so important to break down your relationship to money. Yeah. Where did you come from? And that helps you plan where you're going to go. Exactly. So I love that you said that. And do you talk about that in your book?
Yes, I do. I feel like it is important, and especially important when it comes to other people. Like I mentioned before, my sister, same household, same family, same everything, completely different thoughts about money. Where I'm like, nope, I need to have this much here, and I need to invest for the future. And like, it doesn't, not everybody is going to come from the same exact angle on things, but we all are going to think we're probably right. So that's important, because like, say you and your spouse, like my spouse, like he didn't have any financial issues growing up, very comfortable household, successful attorney father, like that level of like anxiety that I might feel. He doesn't experience that. He's not wrong for that. And I'm not wrong either. It's just a matter of like, hey, if I can actually talk to you about why this might trigger something in me to feel, like maybe I need to see it on paper first, or maybe I'm going to need a little more time to make a decision, or maybe I'm going to be more aggressive because my worst case scenario is a lot different than what's going on in his head. Because I'm like, yeah, you can lose your job, you can lose all your clients, all your money, your home. I know you don't die. I know you don't die. Right. Other people might be like, that's the worst case in the world. If I lost my job, my life would be over. No, it's not. Yeah. So I feel different. Like I have I'm more aggressive financially, because my worst case scenario is run out of money again.
Yeah. And well, that's very real, because you've seen what happens when something like that happens. So you're pulling from these lived experiences. My husband's a musician, so like he just likes to put his feet in the grass, and he grew up wealthy, and 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 so his worst case scenario would just be death. Like, worst case scenario, something happens to you. And when we talk about worst case scenarios, I'm like, no, I could lose my clients. I could lose my, what I've built. And he's like, well, we just, we'll make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
it's disgusting.
Yeah. But for him, like, that was maybe true. Like, maybe he had a bigger safety net than we'd experienced, where we're like, no one helps you. No one's coming to save you. And I feel like I do say that with some of my clients now when they're like, well, Social Security. I'm like, Social Security ain't going to save you. We got to do a little bit more.
Be Social Security.
No, like,
no. They know something we don't.
Yeah. I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, geez, that your backup plan is X. How do we feel about that? And a lot of times they're like, I don't like that. I don't like that backup plan. And so it is kind of, it's funny because, like, I feel like when I get to kind of understand my clients, and sometimes I'll ask them what money was like for them growing up. And, like, usually there's a difference. And maybe it's opposites attract. I don't know. But sometimes there'll be somebody who's, like, really cool with everything, and somebody else who's like, nope, not cool. We got to shut the light off. We got to do this. Like,
they were doing the stock market exchange.
They were like, how do I, like, turn this into something bigger? And it's kind of like, once you have some kind of understanding, or at least can have, like, curiosity about how somebody else thinks, I think it helps everybody realize, like, okay, we actually aren't too far apart in what we really want. But we just have to, maybe maybe have a better understanding of how it's going to work and what it's going to look like. Or, maybe we, if you have two people that just want to wing it all the time,
it's never going to work. It's not going to work.
There might be some, that there might be some financial issues there. So, how do you feel about conflict? How do you feel about stress? And like, I don't like it. I don't like fighting. I like arguing. I like a pretty peaceful household. It's quiet. It's good. And that's the pace that works for me. So I feel like planning just helps avoid surprises.
Yeah. And I do agree. There has to be a balance. If my husband acted the way I do about money and plans, I would unalive him. Like, there can't be two of us. There's one of us. And I've seen people do this, and I myself have done this, where I believe people can change their money mindset. That is possible. Yeah. And I know that you speak on this too. So sometimes people think there's this parent blame game or this victim game, and it keeps them stuck. And there has to be a change. So talk to me about that. Yeah. And I can tell from your content, you also believe this.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I've seen people that, like, a lot of times I work with people who are maybe going from, like, working into retirement, where they've always saved, they've always earned in a positive way, and transitioning to now spending and using it feels terrible, where some people boomerang right back to work. Like, I can't. And it's like, no, the money's here. You can use it. This is, this is what it's for. But it feels wrong. It feels like dangerous. And so there's that mindset that I see quite a bit, where it is kind of work to be like, okay, this money here is still working. This is still invested. And then we have this here we can use short term, because that can either make people spend way less than they need to. And I'll tell people, somebody's going to spend this money. Somebody's going to spend it. Whether it's your heirs, whether it's the state of Massachusetts, if you do know estate planning, I don't know. Like, it's not, it doesn't just have to sit there for you to, like, look at it and know it's there. Because I ask people sometimes, like, what do you like to do with your money? Some people tell me travel, and other people just tell me look at it. Look at it. I like to look at it, which is funny.
Like to look at it.
But it's like, okay. And so I think sometimes mindset, it can be like this, like, tight grip on money, or this, like, mindset of you only live once and you don't know how long you're gonna get, so go to Tulum, go here, do everything,
do the things,
and, like, don't worry. And I'm like, someday you're gonna be like 55, and that's not gonna be, like, cute anymore. Like,
no,
what do we do? No. So I feel like there is a balance, but I do feel like sometimes people will have it in their head. And the other mindset I've heard that is, like, one of the scariest is some people think, like, when they quit, like, I've heard from a few men that they feel like once they stop working, they're just going to, like, die or start drinking or something. And they feel like their whole personality, their whole is based on their job, which is really scary. Because a lot of times people lose their jobs and they don't before they decide to retire. And like, and that fear for some people keeps them like, very, very tied to this role.
It's their identity. They don't know how to break away from this work identity.
Which is like, no, that's not super healthy either, mindset wise. Like, tell me more about you. Like, what do you want to do with this money? Like, you're not just this profession. And so the mindset stuff comes up all the time. And like, it's just worth like asking more questions. Maybe that they never thought of it a different way or something, because they feel like it's a fact. Like, oh yeah, once I retire, like, that's it.
That I'm done. Yeah, forget about it.
Yeah. And so like, or once, well, who cares if I spend it because this happened and this, you see the news and terrible things happen and you're like, this could be tomorrow.
Yeah. Balance.
Yeah.
Like, we got to live our lives, but we also, I firmly am on the same side as you. We also have to plan because they're for the life that happens after.
Right.
And there are certain, I think, habits that you can work on and create to have a little more confidence with money. I think there's a very big lack of confidence with money in today's time. So what are some habits that you do or have seen that can help create that confidence again? Because people don't even, we weren't even allowed to talk about it.
Right.
Like, money used to be something you don't talk about. That's tacky.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I was watching Bridgerton the other day, and they're like, oh, we don't talk about this in the household, like in front of staff. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is so different. But yeah, no, I feel like a lot of times you're right. There is a lack of confidence. And like, sometimes it's just a matter of like feeling like I'm so far behind, or everybody must know more than I do, or everybody probably started this. And I'll hear that when I'll start working with investment clients too. They'll be like, yeah, I bet everybody would have done this when they were 25, but here I am. And I'm like, and here you are. Like, great.
Your story's
and so it's usually kind of looking back at like, okay, what are some of the things you've done that have like helped you get here? And sometimes it's people who, maybe their education helped them get a job in the field they wanted, or maybe that they've worked and they've started saving when they were young, or maybe they have a job and have looked at their expenses where now there is some money to save, or there is some room. So I feel like people don't give themselves any credit at all for what they've done. And I think a lot of times, even just that acknowledgement of like, I need some help with this, or I'm going to download an app to like help me set up a budget, or I'm going to enroll in this plan at work because I feel like maybe I don't understand it fully, but I know it's the right decision and I'll learn more as I go. And so I feel like a lot of times it's really just trying to look at those things that you've done to like prove to yourself that yes, you can be smarter with money. I've made mistakes financially. I cashed out my first 401k and like bought a handbag and like jeans and like stupid stuff. But like that didn't become me. That wasn't my money personality. I wasn't a person who was bad with money. I was a person who made a bad decision that I won't make again.
Maybe you didn't know. Yeah, you learned from it.
I didn't know. I hadn't had my hands on like money in years. Like, it felt great, but like also, if you just take that label on, or if somebody says like, oh yeah, well, I don't let her touch the finances because she's frivolous with money. She'll spend it. She's careless. I'm like, we need to get her in the room because.
Right. We should be talking to her.
You're terrible, and maybe she can get a new man. I don't know, but like, I feel like sometimes I hear that, and it's like maybe in the past that would have been like, okay, well, good point. But I'm like, no, she's going to be in charge of this at some point. Like, most likely, we need to work on this together. Or also, like, are you listening to like some of the issues that are going on here? And so I feel like, it's just not making some of the mistakes you made like define you, but more like, what did you take from that? Okay, what do we do now? What's next? Because it doesn't really matter that you should have done it 10 years ago.
Right, we're here now. And I've seen crazy stuff more in the past few years of my accounting life than ever. And it's just shown me you don't have to know everything. But you should surround yourself with people that can help you and consider themselves experts in this field. We had a client at the firm last year, and it was kind of in the general contracting space. And he was very good at running his business, very well liked. I would say small to medium size in revenue. And then suddenly he died. Like, suddenly. and there were no plans in place. The wife was not on the business. And in our state, the business had to cease operating that day. And the lack of planning was truly devastating to see from the accountant's perspective.
Yeah.
Because everything had to stop that day. So employees were affected, the family was affected, and we had to stop working on their stuff because that's the law in the state with no plan in place. So, you know, obviously you can look back and think they should have had a plan.
Yeah.
But how could they have prepared for that? So it's not knowing everything that is your responsibility.
Right.
It's surrounding yourself with people that can help you and lift you up in the places you might not be super strong in. Yeah. So I love that. I love that you're saying we're not defining on one bad, maybe iffy decision. I love that you bought a purse though.
Yeah. I mean, it was, gosh, when did I graduate? Like early 2000s. And it was just, you know, I felt like that's in my head. And this was before even like there was all this exposure to things on social media. But I felt like, oh, if I have this, then people will think X. You know, people will think that I'm. And then I realized, like, after doing quite a bit of work on myself, like, I'm not in control of how other people think about me. It's actually none of my business.
It's none of your business.
It's not. And like having these status symbols and things like that, like it doesn't really mean anything, you know, but it's like, do I like this? Yes. Right. Okay. You know, like, and so I feel like I started to be a little bit more mindful about why I did things instead of like, because I thought that that's what all the rich girls had in college.
Yeah. And that'll make me more successful if I have a cool purse.
Right. And so like, no one's going to know.
Exactly.
And so it was just, you know, one of those things. But yeah, there's a lot of like things that I think that people do, and then they, instead of learning from it or like moving on, they just beat themselves up forever.
For sure, they are their own worst critic. And I have seen great transformations in small amounts of time, and then transformations that take longer time. So it's no one is behind. Like, you're not behind. Everyone has their own story. And so working with entrepreneurs, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. What are some, for the people that might feel behind, what are some practical money tips, tricks, advice that maybe you find yourself saying over and over to entrepreneurs?
Yeah. A lot of times at first, especially with people who it's kind of maybe transitioning from like a hobby to a business or something that they maybe don't see as being a big thing, is usually separating out the bank accounts. And that's the start of separating out the business from you. Like you mentioned that unfortunate case where there was no planning in place. If you feel like you're the business, why plan? Why, you know, you don't really make plans, because it's also like the way people avoid life insurance. Like, I don't want to think about that. That's really sad. But when the business is over here and it's like, all right, well, what would be smart to do for the business? Having a plan in place is usually a smart idea. And it's kind of like separating out like you from this thing that you're creating that you could potentially sell at some point, that you could maybe, you know, that could maybe carry on, you know, that could go, you know, decades beyond you, or that you might want to treat as an asset that, you know, if you don't do your books, if you don't keep good records, and then you want to sell because you have to, or, you know, maybe your health or whatever reason, and your numbers are a mess, you might not get a good deal. You might not get the best price. You know, somebody else might come in and be like, okay, well, I'll give you this. And you might be like, okay, or you maybe could have earned quite a bit more. And so really starting to like treat that business like you're an employee of this business, even if it is yours and it's you're self-employed. Like, I like putting a little bit of space in between there, so you could visualize like, what do you want to do when this is not part of the, you know, this isn't your main focus all the time.
Right.
And so sometimes it is like separating things out, thinking about like, okay, if I was a fully booked coach or whatever you're doing, what decisions would you make? Because sometimes you might take on people who aren't ideal, or you might be a little graspy at first with business, because it might feel like, well, I just can't say no to everybody. I got to help everybody. And it's like, okay, yes, we can help everybody, but like, what are some ways we could do that? Maybe you can write a newsletter that's free, that other people can use, where you put your info out there, and then maybe you're not overwhelmed and burnt out because you're taking on clients that don't value your services or are underpaying you for what you do. And which means that you're not giving your best clients the level of service. So like all of these things that come up that are like in my head, that help everybody. In my head, I can't be too expensive because what are people going to think? I don't know. How much do you need to make? And like, we need to set the business prices up this way to support you and other employees. And so I really do a lot of trying to keep things very outside of being as personal as they are. Because I think that like that can hopefully set a business up to actually like to thrive. Instead of a lot of business owners get burnt out or they don't make enough and then they go back to finding a job because it's just it's too hard.
Too much. Yeah. And it's very hard to separate yourself. I can most certainly speak on that, especially when your name is the brand. Yeah. So when a financial planner asks, well, what about life after business? I'm like, that's when I go to heaven. Yeah. That's RIP Ashley. But in all seriousness, the first thing we tell people is to separate their bank accounts.
Yeah. Because then it's like you miss things. Like if you went to Target and you got this, paper and this stuff for the office, and then you got a bunch of personal, like you're not going to deduct any of it, or maybe you'll try to get all of it. But like I feel like everything being separate, it's just this space from you. It just makes things easier. Because I feel like other than that, it gets really complicated.
Oh, it's a nightmare. When people don't separate, immediately just know our firm is talking about you behind your back. Like we are. We're like, why though? This is harder for them.
It is.
Them, but it's harder.
No, I know. And I feel like some people are like, oh, but it's going to cost a couple $100s to get another. Okay. Like, okay. Like the roadblocks are small. Like it feels like they're bigger, but they're not. And like, that can really help people. I think because I feel like the further out you can look and grow, instead of just doing everything on like a hamster wheel of business where you're like, okay, clients come in, I have to stay this busy. You can kind of hopefully at some point enjoy it because this is probably what you dreamed about doing.
Right. That's why you would want to have a business. Why do you want to hate your business? I ask people that all the time. If you're so unhappy, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing this? So I would kick myself if I did not ask, as we are getting close to close, about this reality series. Okay. I love reality TV. It is my guilty pleasure. I grew up on Jersey Shore. I grew up on the Kardashians. I don't know how real and relatable that stuff was, but man, I lived for it. So, which probably speaks volumes why I am the way I am today. But you have you're hosting a financial reality series called Heartbroke?
Yes.
Tell me about this.
So this was really interesting. I had a friend who saw an Instagram post from like a producer, and it said they're looking for like a therapist and like a financial planner for this show that they're doing about money. And my friend sent it to me and said, I think they're looking for you. And so I like during COVID was like, hi, I'm curious. And my husband was like, what are you doing? And I had this Zoom call with these producers and we were talking about like the thoughts for the show really were to kind of, to work with couples who are at different stages in their financial life, in their actual life, and to talk about money, and then try to, give them they wanted a therapist and they wanted somebody to give them financial advice and see how it ended. I had like a certification in life coaching and I talked, about like how I deal with people's, thought process around money, and they just decided to just use me, as one person. To talk with these 12 couples. And the point of the show was, the whole point of even the Singleton Foundation and Million Stories is to to combine money and entertainment, because financial literacy and entertainment, because it's people are curious about it, how other people's how all that works. But it's also, and people need to learn it. We know there's huge gaps in financial literacy. And so their thoughts were to like weave in some story and some reality content with some tips and advice. And so I worked with these 12 couples, and I feel like anybody who watches their like short episodes, they're like under 15 minutes long. Okay. Crazy for how long we spent out there all day working with these people on like 2 separate visits. And but I guess that time span wise is like consumable for people. But yeah, so we talked to people who had very different money mindsets. One spent some time being homeless. One person was in the military and watched every dollar. Like the whole range, parents, dating couples, all of this. And it was really interesting to just see, you know, their thoughts about money, their partner's thoughts about money, and then how we could kind of come to the table together to get a better, you know, path going forward. And one of the couples got married and they started a business together, and they really did some work to kind of understand how the other one was feeling scared because of something that happened in her past with you know, being robbed, you know, all of these things that are kind of like really emotional that like might not know.
Right.
Maybe we never have
come out that way. Yes. Oh,
and then, you know, some of the couples, you were like, I don't know if this is going to make it. And then, you know, one had a ton of student loan debt and it was impacting how they felt as a person, like their value. And so I feel like anybody watching these episodes would be able to relate to somebody out there, you know, on some level, because these were very different people, but situations that I think a lot of us might have found ourselves in. So it was such a fun experience. It was so,
oh my gosh,
that's very different. But yeah, it was just a really cool way to like, again, do work, interesting work, valuable work, and like
with real people,
reach more people.
I love that. Where can we find it?
It's you could find it on YouTube, or you could go to Million Stories, which has a lot of different financial content, and shows that they've done some shorter clips. They've worked with some, I think they had you know, a football player talking about getting money and like him starting to understand and learn how to use money. So like really kind of, again, weaving that entertainment piece with the financial literacy to make sure that like what you're watching is fun, it's entertaining, but it's also
stay
like,
in it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Or you can go to my website. I have all the shows on there over there at mistylynch.com.
Okay. Yep. Misty-Lynch.com is where we're going to go. Is that where we would find your podcast, Demystifying Money?
Yep, there, and also the book by the same title. You can find all of those and like other media, you know, clips, articles, things like that are all over there.
Beautiful. And so if anyone is listening to this, and I have a tendency to make people feel convicted. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I just talk about things with conviction, I guess. And so if anyone is listening and they're like, you know, I need to start thinking about what happens after this point, or maybe they have kids and maybe they want to talk about a 529. Maybe my clients are watching this and I'm like, don't talk to me about a 529. I don't know. I don't know how to set that up. Retirement accounts is always, that's the top asked question for me. Strategy, reviewing their accounts, and want to work with someone that's not going to make them feel convicted or scared. What's the best way for people to start working with you?
Yeah, so if you go to mistylynch.com, there is a link over to my website for Soundview Financial Advisors, which is the business I run, where we do financial planning and investment management. If you're looking for somebody, I mean, we're in Massachusetts. If you're looking for somebody near you, you could go to like cfp.net. You could look for a financial planner. You know, a certified financial planner could be helpful because they you know, that they're, you know, a certain level of experience. And you could also look for somebody who maybe doesn't sell products or doesn't, you know, maybe they're fiduciary or independent. So really they'll be more focused on helping you. And that's how they get compensated, just by you instead of by, you know, commissions or anything like that. That could be a really good start. And there's, you know, the profession I feel like is starting to get more attention, starting to get some more college majors focused on it and getting more people into it. And so, yeah, you could definitely start there. And even you can look at some resources that are out there if you have a 401k at work. Like there's tools and things like that where you can, you know, hopefully get some access to help. And if not, or you need to go to that next level, reach out to somebody.
You can work with someone. When I see CFP, and now granted, I'm in the financial realm, so I say this with authority. When I see CFP, I'm like, oh, they had to take tests.
Lots of tests. Mine was 2 days long. I think they've condensed it into one terribly long day. But yeah, and there's a certain number of hours that you need to work with clients. There's a lot, you know, in a lot of continuing education. It is, you know, there's lots of different designations out there. But that's, you know, one of the ones that I feel like is getting more recognized, which is good.
But that's comforting though, because when you're working with a financial advisor, sometimes you don't know what their education is, or where they, you know, what do they know, or what are they kind of outsourcing to someone else. And so when I see that CFP, I'm like, this girl knows what's up, because she took some tests and I know they're very hard.
Yeah.
Yes. So very, very grateful to have you on here.
Thank you.
I just cannot tell you how grateful we are for the work that you're doing and breaking down the scary, intimidating kind of walls around money. You know, we both grew up in the world where we weren't supposed to talk about money. Like, you don't talk about politics, religion, and money.
Yeah, and now it's like, how do you not?
Yes. Can we be real people? And how do you learn more, you know? And so I'm so grateful that you're breaking down that barrier. And thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you.
I'm going to